It's funny. We don't even think about the internet anymore, do we? It's just there, like electricity or running water. It's how we work, how we talk, how we live. We just assume it's always going to be on, always working perfectly. But what if that whole assumption is built on incredibly shaky ground? So let's really ask that question. What actually happens when one of those invisible giant companies that holds the internet together just blinks out? As we're about to see, it's not just about your favorite website loading a little slow. The domino effect is massive. And look, this isn't some far-off hypothetical scenario. It literally just happened, back to back. First, in October 2025, an Amazon Web Services disturbance just sent this huge ripple effect across the globe, knocking major services offline for hours. Then, boom, a month later, Cloudflare has an outage and suddenly massive platforms like ChatGPT and X are just gone. These weren't little glitches. These were giant warning flares. Oh yeah, we've all seen this page, that dreaded 500 error. Usually think, this one website is down. But during these outages, this message was popping up everywhere, all at once. It was the clearest sign you could get that the problem wasn't with a dozen different sites. The problem was with the single foundation they were all built on. So what is this fragile foundation? Well, this gets us right to the heart of the issue. It's what's being called a centralization crisis. Let's really dig into what that actually means for the internet that you and I use every single day. Okay, so centralized infrastructure basically means that huge chunks of the internet all depend on a tiny handful of massive companies. Think AWS, think Cloudflare, they handle the data, the security, you name it. And yeah, it's super efficient, but it also creates this one giant glowing red weak spot. It's the ultimate single point of failure. If one of them goes down, they take a massive piece of the internet down with them. And this quote from a cybersecurity expert just nails it. The problem wasn't that ChatGPT broke or that X broke. The real problem is that the one single layer that they both rely on, that's what broke. It's a system-wide vulnerability that we've baked right into the architecture of the modern web. So this really lays out the two roads in front of us. On the one hand, you've got our current setup, the centralized model. It's brittle. One point of failure triggers a cascade of disruptions. But on the other hand, you have a totally different idea, a decentralized model. It's all about resilience. In a distributed network, if one piece fails, who cares? The rest of the network just keeps on humming. It's just fundamentally more stable by design. All right, so if putting all our eggs in one basket is the problem, then not doing that is the solution, right? This leads us to this really exciting emerging vision for what the internet could be, a concept people are starting to call Web4, and it's all about putting control back in the hands of the user. Now, at the very core of this whole idea is this powerful principle, data sovereignty. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually super simple and kind of revolutionary. It says that you, yes you, should own and control your own data, your own digital identity, not some giant corporation. This is way bigger than just privacy. It's about a fundamental shift in who holds the power on the internet. But look, a vision is great, but it's just talk until you have the actual tools to build it. And that's where a project called Architect comes into play. This is an initiative that's focused on creating the real physical hardware we're going to need to make a decentralized, user-controlled Web4 actually happen. And their goal is, well, incredibly ambitious. They want to completely dismantle our reliance on these big centralized cloud companies. And the way they plan to do it is by moving all that data and computing power away from those massive corporate data centers and onto small devices at what's called the edge of the network. In other words, devices that we, the users, actually own and control. So how does Arctic pull this off? Well, it's really a three-part approach. First, it uses edge computing, which just means it spreads all the work across tons of different devices, so there is no single point of failure anymore. Second, it's built to integrate with Web4, letting you do things like host your own private services. I mean, imagine running a small social network that you, not some company, have total control over. And finally, and this is the absolute key, it's all based on user-owned hardware. You own the physical infrastructure. It's literally in your hands. And we're not talking about some sci-fi concept here. This hardware is real. You've got things like the UISC. The easiest way to think about it is like a super secure digital passport on a tiny SD card that manages your identity without needing some central company to approve it. And then you have Project HUBS, which is basically a small, powerful computer that acts as your very own personal server. This is the toolkit for taking back your digital life. So, where does this all leave us? What's the big takeaway? I think it's that we've hit a real turning point. These massive outages have shown us, in no uncertain terms, that decentralizing the web isn't just some cool tech experiment anymore. It's an absolute necessity. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? These outages aren't little bugs to be patched. They are fundamental failures of system architecture. We've built our entire digital world on a foundation that's fundamentally flawed, and now we're watching the cracks spread in real time. But the most important part is that there is a path forward. It means we have to get serious about building out decentralized systems like Arctic. It means we need a shift in thinking, where we see ourselves not just as consumers of the internet, but as active participants, as hosts. And it means we have to start treating edge computing as essential infrastructure, not some side project. So in the end, it really all boils down to this one question. Are we going to keep building a fragile web, or are we going to build a resilient one? These recent outages have pulled back the curtain and exposed just how brittle our current system is. But the tech, the vision for a stronger, more user-controlled internet, it already exists. The only real question left is, which path are we going to choose?